When it comes to weapons with novelty, ones with particularly novel designs get me a little bit excited. It's weird, when you look at the Kritzkrieg, the Scottish Resistance, or the Rescue Ranger, and seeing they are essentially just cobbled together modded versions of existing stock weapons, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, as if to say the mercs got tired of waiting for new weapons and decided to make their own. There's one in the list that, if I'm honest, I only wanted to talk about because of its novel-looking design, because it's just two different busted weapons slapped together. The Soda Popper. The Soda Popper was once a dominant mainstay in pubs and quick play, when that was a thing. Show my age, why don't I? Due to its on-demand mini-crits that charged solely because you moved really fast. In recent memory, it's become less popular to the newbie scouts because Scout's double jump is already insanely useful, so why would I need any more? Well, I'm here to find out. My name's Cody, and I'm here to ask one simple question and hopefully get one simple answer. How bad could it be? Hello, thank you for watching the video. I wanted to give a big thank you to Ed Weenie for helping edit this video down while I worked on previous prior projects. Be on the lookout for those. Another big thank you to Gabe, as always, for making the intro. Also, it would really help if you would subscribe, consider becoming a channel member, you know, all that jazz. Anyway, on to the video. The weapon was added in the Uber update in 2011 when the game went free to play. It's part of a set, just as many weapons were in the Uber update, along with the Atomizer, Winger, and the Bonk Boy cosmetic. The Soda Popper is a heavily modified force of nature whose design is admittedly outdated. The way it used to work is moving would build hype, which would automatically activate once full. When activated, you got mini crits for 8 seconds, thus the critical on the bottom, but unfortunately it seems as though the can ran out, and Scout had to adapt. Being that the Force of Nature is based on a break action 12 gauge, the Soda Popper follows a similar rule. You only have 2 shots before a reload, which is 25% faster. The weapon fires 50% faster as well, same as the Force of Nature. That's about where the similarities end between the two, as the Soda Popper has a very different gimmick, I guess I'll call it. While it used to give mini-crits, these days you gain 4 extra jumps for a total of 6 jumps from the ground, or 5 if you jump in mid-air upon activation of the height meter. You'll know it's active by the bright neon purple glow of the weapon. Ironically, the Atomizer does not grant another additional jump when hype is activated, while the Winger does increase the jump height, so keep that in mind. The height meter is also filled in a very different way in the current era compared to 2011. You build it by dealing a total of 350-ish damage. To quote the wiki, it takes about 350 damage to fill up the hype meter, which is approximately 4 point-blank shots from the Soda Popper, 16 close-range pistol shots, or 10 swings from the bat. It's important to keep in mind that just as with the Buff Banner or Babyface Blaster, you don't need to directly deal damage with the weapon itself. It can be filled in many ways. Rap Assassin, pistols, Flying Guillotine, you get the drill. Of course, you can't get it with other scatterguns, but that should be apparent. Although it should be noted, if you activate Hype and then switch scatterguns, it'll still have the extra jump utility even if you switch weapons, but this is never useful. Fun fact, the shells do have a hazard symbol on them. I bet a bunch of you never noticed that, huh? The Soda Popper has a weird strategy type. Essentially what the gameplay boils down to with the Soda Popper is a flank or distant type scout. Much like the Babyface's Blaster, it works best with pistols, cleavers, and Rap Assassins to get distant chip damage off, as unlike the Force of Nature, it doesn't shoot more pellets per shot, so you'll still only fire the 10 pellets of stock. The farther you are away from the target, the less damage you'll do, so unless you're good at choosing your targets that are fleeing due to low health, being generally defenseless, or just incompetent, you'll rarely be able to make use of it. When flanking, you'll also have to be much more careful than the force of nature as well, because you don't have a knockback to help grow the distance between you and the target, or knock them off cliffs. The best advice that I can give for either weapon, though, is to unload both shots as soon as you get close enough. It'll lower the time that the opponent has to react than if you were to fire, then try to re-aim. I promise, you'll be far more likely to hit both shots this way. When hype is active, it's advised that you typically jump around like a frickin' madman while staying in close range. Keep in mind, you can use other weapons during the hype mode, so pistols and cleavers are good for mid-air chip damage. Jumping in many different directions can make fighting things like soldiers and demo men a breeze. Their limited mobility and new need for air shots can make them powerless. Soldiers without weapons that directly make this more possible, like the direct hit or lock and load, will have to do something that even higher skilled players can still have trouble accomplishing. I mean, I can't do it, so I guess nobody can. They can't rely on splash damage anymore because you're not on the ground. Stickies and non-direct rockets become practically useless. Other scouts will have less issue tracking you, as they can often just do much the same to a lesser extent to wait out the hype meter, then close in on you, who has a clip size and damage output disadvantage. Engineers, obviously, will often have the sentries nearby, and you are advised to avoid them if possible anyway. Sentries have auto-aim, and there's practically no way to avoid that. With rockets, you'll have a much better time, but, you know, it's mostly the bullets that are gonna get you. Pyros don't have to aim with their flamethrowers, and Afterburn can be a bitch, so watch out for them. But a Dragon's Fury Pyro might be a good target if you're confident that you can aim better than them in the air. Medics and Spies can be good fodder if you can outmaneuver them when they're alone, and are sure that they're not very good at using things that aren't, you know, the medigun or the knife. Snipers with rifles can be dangerous, but considering most have to be scoped in to deal any significant amount of damage, you'll usually be fine. But the Classic and the Huntsman can be a much different story. You see, the Classic can charge without the scope for powerful one-shots, and the Huntsman arrow's hitbox is huge, and Scout is particularly vulnerable to headshots for seemingly no reason, but it's true. Heavies, just stay away from them. Trust me, I tried. But considering you do generally have to still be close, them being hit scan and you being in the air doesn't typically make much difference. They are slow, and with some clever movement, you could get away from them, but oftentimes I found myself being tracked to death. It's also just useful for general escape, including escaping into a base on 2 Fort without needing to use the roof at the bridge, using this escape route in Upward, right here in Gorge. It does have many more uses than it would let on at first. Once again, here's Naga to provide his take on the soda popper in a competitive environment. And to read them, this week we have Appreax, who's just recently started doing TF2 content over on his channel, so if you like his voice, maybe go over and check him out, where he's done a video on the Pretty Boy's pocket pistol, and has more to come.
Hello, this is my take for Pop Top 89's famous movie, the soda popper. Here's my take. I've had to rewrite this a few times because dude, you put so many S's in here. Okay, stock scattergun. Say it 5 times fast. I swear to God, you will trip and fall and die. Okay. There's not much to say about the soda popper other than the burst damage of being ridiculously powerful, often allowing you to kill a medic before they can even react. The fact that it reloads in 2 shots means it's got a similar sustained DPS to the stock scattergun, plus the hype mode makes the scout near impossible to hit. It's the only scout primary banned in 6s, but it remains unbanned in Highlander. It's almost identical to the stock scattergun. It's almost identical to the stock scattergun, and allows you to have even greater mobility on a class that's already one of the most agile in the game.
In conclusion, the soda popper isn't a terrible weapon. Far from it. It's very good for what it's worth, and having extra jumps is a very good skill for scouts. With good aim and unpredictable movement, using chip weapons like pistols and cleavers can be a great way to keep up the damage output for something that has a pretty wide spread. Because pistols have less spread to account for, and obviously cleavers don't have any spread at all. They'll just go wherever you aim them, but be sure to account for the fall off of the weapon. All in all, I do love the Soda Popper for its designs. Many late nights were spent running around on Upward, Two Fort, all kinds of old maps that I used to play on, and just having a wonderful time just landing off those meaty crits. But it doesn't do that anymore, but it's still a very good weapon for what it's worth. I love it. It's an incredibly useful utility, even if it's a not so super shotgun.